Welcome to the Hey Mama Homeschool Show, centered around family life and home education. How do you get homeschooling and housework done? How do you help children who are struggling? How do you teach a rebellious child? We have answers. You pour into your family daily, and we are here to help you. Brought to you by the Old Schoolhouse, your trusted partner for over 20 years.
Hey, welcome to the Hey Mama Homeschool Show. I'm Steph Morrison with the Old Schoolhouse, and we have got a lot of good reasons why we homeschool. So, as the title of this episode is Help, I Forgot Why I'm Homeschooling, I thought the best thing about when we forget when we're homeschooling is to remember all the important reasons why we do. And if you're anything like me, you started for one reason, and then over the years, you have just discovered so many more great reasons to homeschool. And I totally expect to continue to find reasons and reasons even after I'm done homeschooling. I have got a list for you that we're going to go over. But first, if you happen to be in the Shelby, North Carolina area, Gina Suarez would love to meet you on June 28th and 29th, 2024 at the Homeschooling Special Needs Expo, where she will be speaking about the Schoolhouse Network. Today's episode is sponsored by International Alert Academy. The Alert Academy is a post-high school discipleship program for young men with the goal of forging extraordinary men who influence their world for Christ. Find out more at alertacademy.com. I have got a list here of 15 reasons that we are thankful we homeschool. This is a list that we have available for you online. You can check the show notes for that link. So I've got 15. I actually was going to start with 10, but I just had so many here that were great, and I just wanted to speak on a little bit. In fact, each time I do one of these episodes, I like to give you a little home education highlight and a little bit of something just personally that connects to the reasons why I homeschool or just something that is really good about home education. And so the one I have for you today is that our family isn't tied to the agenda of an institution. So we can certainly take that agenda in a few ways and it would apply. But I'm going to especially take that to the agenda of that daily and even weekly and monthly flow of education. As a homeschooling family, we can make our learning mesh and flow with just life in general. And learning doesn't just become this something that our kids do in a school. Learning is meshed so much more into their day-to-day life. So that's one of the reasons, and I'll probably just touch on that a little wee bit when I go through this list. And so here we are. Top 15 family strengthening reasons to homeschool. Number 1, my children get to see God working in every area of their lives. So important to build them up and be able to help them see, especially as they're getting into the older years and they're going into adulthood, what God's plan is for them. Number 2, I have more time to know my children. This is so important, not just to be able to give them this customized education that we give them, but just to have that strong relationship. I do have that comparison. I have an older son who's 29 now, and he went through pretty much all of his schooling in a public school. And there's a big difference between that relationship between me and him when he was growing up and me and my boys now. And he's a great man, and he learned a lot more after he left school than when he was in it, I have to say. But it is, I know these boys much better at this age, whether they like it or not. And it actually comes in really handy, and just me knowing what is the best educational path for them, what's the best courses, curriculum, education method. It's just so important to know that. And no teacher is going to know that about your child, only having them in there 1 year or even a few years. Elementary years, teachers can have kids for a few years, but not always, not often anymore. Number 3, there is freedom from constant peer pressure and expectations to conform to the norm. I love that my boys just get to know a little bit more how they are. And, now they're brothers, they're siblings, and they pick on each other a little bit. but for the most part, they don't have to try to fit into some mold. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is in an institutional setting, like public school or even private schools. Anything that's like that setting of just a bunch of other peers of the same age, and you're gonna find that situation of just the peer pressure and comparing to other kids, and am I doing the right thing, and what am I doing to fit in? And it happens so subconsciously. Number 4, I am taking back my responsibility to educate my children, and that education is about them. So that's part of that nice customized education that we get to offer and provide for our kids, that high quality education. And it is a responsibility. I call it one of the most rewarding responsibilities of parenting. And if you've listened to me many times speaking, I will often speak about how parenting is actually easier when you homeschool your kids, because you don't have that conflict of what they're, learning and being around in a school setting for so many hours of their day. There's still plenty of conflict from time to time. We're families, right? But not the same kind of thing. Number 5, we have more meals together. That is awesome, I believe. And it's not even just more meals, but we have more snacks together. We get to enjoy that leisurely time of eating meals and of eating snacks and making food. Do you get to do that in your kitchen too? Make food with make lots of food with your kids. Number 6, I know everything my children are learning. That is 100% important. But the learning that happens at home, you get to pick that. You get to pick the curriculum. You get to pick how that's being delivered. And you get to decide on how your kids are going to be graded and evaluated on what they're learning, which is really important as well. Number 7, homeschooling is relationship-based as opposed to the product-based learning in the public school system. So I could really talk on that one a while. I actually even thought I've got to keep this really succinct in my speaking, because these are just things I could really just share my thoughts on that just come in free flowing from my mind on all the different benefits of home education. And I think one of the biggest things, and something that I really realized as I was, asking several parents this over a period of time, what is the reason why you would encourage other parents to homeschool? And every single one of them, they would give more than one reason, but every single one of them gave the reason about relationship with everyone in the family. Even the relationships that they have with other kids are so much more, I guess, valuable is the word I think I want to use. They're so much more valuable when your kids are not just in this school setting together and kind of forced to be together. For the most part, we're around other families or around other kids, not all day, 5 days out of the week. It's short periods of time. And I actually think that builds a much better relationship than having to have all these kids at the same age together. And they pretty much know each other more than they even know their family or their siblings. And that's just the nature of the fact where they're spending more waking hours day to day with these peers, with their class. And that is the way how you have to do mass education. No way around that. But that is why it's just that awesome responsibility that we as parents, that when we can just bring them home and have their education at home, it just creates so many better situations. So I'll go on to number 8. We get to be a fun and relaxed family. I love that part. They not having to, my kids to either catch the bus or me to drive them, or us having to, again, a little bit what I said earlier, fit this agenda, this timetable of a school system, and pretty much putting our family life around, the institutional setting wherever a child may go to school. And that just makes it much more, fun and relaxed when we don't have to be hustling here and hustling there, and our kids are going somewhere and then we're going off somewhere and we're meeting a little bit in the middle. Praise God, we get to be a fun and relaxed family, just the way that I think He meant us to be. Number 9, I can foster values in my children, which would be in opposition to some of the values in a school system. And that is so important just as they're growing up and we're building character in them as they're just wee kids, and right up, especially until they're just ready to become adults, ready to go into adulthood. And we can just set them up with the value system that helps them in that situation. The International Alert Academy, which is that post-high school discipleship program for young men, and really equipping them with a certain value system. That's one of the things I saw about this company, this organization. It's really equipping them with the values, of course, of a Christian viewpoint, and equipping them after they get out of high school. So what a great opportunity to have them in your value system and be able to put them in a higher education, this being a post-high school program that then instills the right values in them. And when they've already got that great start with what you've provided them in their childhood, they are going to succeed so much better at whatever they do. Find out more about the International Alert Academy. Go check out their website at alertacademy.com. Number 10, we all get to be around other people who give lots of thought to learning and education. And that is one amazing thing. I think even as I reflect on my childhood, I did not get to be around many people that cared about education. Even education within school was more about going through this curriculum and that curriculum. It did not really seem not the same at all as how I set up my learning for my kids and how I hear other parents doing it. What I'm reading in the old Schoolhouse magazine, you'll get so many different approaches to education, because as a homeschooling parents, we put thought into that, as much thought as we put into many of the other parenting tasks and responsibilities that we have. Number 11, homeschooling through all kinds of adversity, doubt, and life changes becomes a source of personal growth. That's just one of the beautiful, beautiful things about homeschooling, is that we can adjust that learning, and not only can we adjust our learning schedule of our formal learning, but we can also make a learning experience out of almost anything. Number 12, learning about chemistry and fractions by baking tasty snacks is way better than using worksheets. Yes, it is so good. I have got definitely my one son is in the kitchen a lot. He enjoys baking and cooking, and I've got him even making bread regularly, and he's just so great at that. And that he's just more or less taken that on his own. He'll just make things on his own. And really it started, I think, it started because I really wanted I wanted to be using those recipes and even doubling the recipes. Or maybe I just want to make half of the recipe. So can we half that? And if we wanted to do a third less of the salt in there, how much would that be? So it's a great opportunity when you're in the kitchen. That's like lab time, science lab time. I like math too. Yep. Fractions, chemistry. We get to put that learning experience throughout our day. Again, learning does not just happen between this and this hours. Learning is something we want to instill in our kids, that there's just the opportunity to always be learning and to love that learning because of the things we can produce with what we know. Number 13, we can plan our learning time around other family and personal events. So I actually kind of talked about this as related to the, even a couple other comments, because it actually just works in so wonderfully. We can plan the formal learning around what we have going on. Of course, we want to make sure we get enough time in there, and that's all part of the rewarding responsibility of educating our kids. But as long as that learning gets done sometime, then that is something where it can change with what we've got going on. I highly recommend a good routine of learning. Don't let it happen. Don't let that be up and down and erratic all the time. And I speak from experience for that. There was a little period of time where I felt like I was just not doing anything on a regular routine. And not only is it helpful to me to make for me as the parent to make sure the work is getting done, but it's also, I found it's a real benefit for my kids. I don't know that they'd admit that they like routine, but routine is definitely helpful for them to have the right expectations and be able to just get into that routine just like it's a habit, whether they like it or not, right? When you make learning a habit and that's just what you do, then it makes it easier to get it done. At least that's what I found. Number 14, the socialization with people of all ages is much more beneficial for their emotional and mental maturity. Yes. I like to think that myth of that homeschooled kids, like that socializing just happens in a classroom with a great big bunch of people where you're forced into this learning situation, to this learning environment with 30 or some other kids, which is why that socialization situation in public schools, especially, is not really good. It's actually a really, really poor example of socialization because they're really just interacting with their peers, right? Kids of the same age, and they're not getting that experience of different ages of kids, and regularly. So regularly they're with different ages of kids, and they're with adults and outside of their family as well as inside of their family. Because I think family, especially extended family situations where it's not close relationships, but you know them, right? Is a really good opportunity as well. And number 15. And you know what was near the bottom of this list? So if you go and download this, you'll get this list. It's going to be, a front and a back. Going to be two sheets, and there's 50 altogether. So this one is number 47 on this list of 50, but it's the last one that I've got on my shorter list of 15. And I think it's one of the most lovely ones that I like to see, is that siblings have stronger relationships. Certainly doesn't mean that siblings always get along. As I've heard from other families, and is definitely the case in my own home, my boys do not always get along. They are 16 and 13 now. And it seemed like they got along a little bit better when they were younger. Still little fights, but they did a lot more together. But nonetheless, they have a such deeper bond with each other than they would have if they had spent really the majority of their waking hours up until this age, if they'd spent it being apart all that time instead of being together. And those stronger sibling relationships are just something that we want to really foster. As I tell my boys, it's like, you two need to look out for each other. God put you together as brothers, not just so you could have somebody to hang out with in the childhood growing up, but because when you're both adults, you need to have that connection and bond and be there for each other. And it works much better when they've spent so much of their childhood together. And they actually know each other so much better too. Just like I know them much better than if I'd sent them away, and I didn't see them for hours and hours, a definite 5 days out of most weeks. So that is my list for you. I hope that it was something that just motivated you just listening to it here. If you were looking around for why is homeschooling so great, or if you were in a state of like, I just think this is too hard. Most homeschooling parents have felt that way. I definitely have in the past. It's been years and years and years since I've ever felt that way. And the main reason is because I have it so secure in my mind of the benefits of homeschooling, and it far outweighs any drawbacks. And there are challenges. So if your kids are younger, not school age yet, maybe you're looking around for information and you're making that education decision, what you want to do for their education, and considering that, hey, I could, I need to learn more about what it's like to educate your own kids. I really encourage you that if you want a strong family life, that homeschooling is the way to do it. You can definitely do it. There are so many resources, so many that we offer just within the old Schoolhouse. We've got our magazine. We've got so much stuff online. We've got groups on different social media platforms. We've got so much that we do. I could go on and on about the different ways that we support homeschoolers and their life, and just to raise kids who are following Christ. It's definitely what we want to do as a company, and we look to where we can impact families' lives, just that they see Jesus more. And you are not going to be able to do that near as much if you're sending your kids away for so long. Not only because that is a fairly godless system if it's a public school. Obviously it may be a little bit different for a private school, but just stay the course. Stay the course if you're having doubts. This too shall pass. And if you're considering it, I just can't say enough for how great it's been. It's been a struggle for me. I've been educating my kids for 16 years, I say, since they were born. So I say that my middle one technically, but my oldest one that I've home educated is 16. So I made that choice before they were born to educate them. And yeah, I've wavered from time to time, but never to the point where I actually had them enrolled in any school. But I needed to stay really focused on the reasons that I homeschool. So you can see a lot more on this topic, see a lot more that we have from the old Schoolhouse, specifically on this topic on the show notes. This is episode number 68. So if you don't happen to have a link right wherever you're listening to this, you can go to the homeschoolshow.com. So that's homeschoolshow.com. And you will find all our episodes there. You can search episode 68 specifically for the show notes for this one, or just search around there for whatever you may be wanting to know more about on homeschooling. So I hope that you will go and download this. I actually have this 50 Reasons to be Thankful We Homeschool. I actually have it right by my desk and I look at it regularly. And I encourage you to download this or make your own list. Make your own list. Maybe you're not going to come up with 50 reasons right now, but I bet you're going to come up with ones that are really just personal to you. And they can be a lot about what I talked about, and they're going to be different too. You're going to have your own personal reasons. So make your own personal family list. Get the kids together. Make it a whole family event. We're going to write down the reasons why we homeschool, why we love it, why we do it. And that's going to be even more powerful for you to have around for everybody in the family to look at, because you made that list. And I'm just going to close us off in prayer. Heavenly Father, I thank you for this opportunity to just share my heart about homeschooling. I thank you for everyone listening, and I just ask you to speak into their lives. If they're listening to this and just feeling like they need a little bit of encouragement, I hope not only that they've just gotten a bit of encouragement through the words that I've spoken here, but that you will put other people in your path and that you will just speak to them personally, right through your Spirit, Lord, and just speak to their hearts and their minds and just give them assurance and give them direction on whatever they might need. Lord, I thank you and praise you for every good and perfect gift, and especially for the gift of our children. In Jesus' name, amen.